Hi there, let's get started. Today's lesson for the 182 class, Intro to Light and Color, is we're going to do a little bit of a review about some of the things that light is and light isn't. So let's go over this one. You guys should know this. We've done it a number of times in class. First one typically we think about is how much light do we have to work with. So light is amount, right? How much? Then we try to think of some of the other aspects of light, right? We know how much, but what is it doing, right? What might be the quality, right? Is it soft? Or is it harsh? Right? We might think that light is also color, right? Right? Every light source emits a different color. Right? Every light source emits a different color. Okay? And the last one, the one that we're going to work on today a bit, is light is direction. Right? Where is it coming from? What is it doing to our subject? So, light direction has a huge impact on what we can show and what we can't show, or what is shown and what is hidden. A couple ways to look at. So, light direction. Now, typically, we're very much used to seeing light come from above, right? All the light fixtures, and you know, all the light fixtures I have here lighting up my little studio here are all coming kind of from up to down, from top to bottom, right? So we're very used to seeing that, right? We have little shadows under our eyes because of our eye sockets and our forehead. We have a little shadow under our nose typically, and under our chin, right? So we're very much used to seeing light come from above, right? But what does that do to our subject? Well, it throws a shadow down, right? So when we think about light direction, we have to really think, well, what does the light leave, right? What does the light leave? Well, the light leaves a shadow. Now, a shadow is what gives us detail. The shadow is what gives us dimensional shape to an object. The shadow is what gives us depth, right? It's what helps us persuade our viewers that height and width, because we only have two dimensions in photography, that height and width also has depth. So it's one more technique I call the giant mixing bowl of photography, all the stuff we get to put in, or all the things we get to pull out and use. How are we using light to convey or to show our subject, to convey a mood or a meaning, or simply emphasize or de-emphasize our subject? So what are we trying to do? And how do we want to show it, right? Remember, kind of the three things, right? Why am I taking this picture? What's important to me? What do I want to show? The third one here is kind of what we're talking about when we start getting into the various aspects of light, right? What do you want to show? Direction is huge for helping us what we want to show. So we start thinking about light, we have to think about the shadow, the direction. We want a little drama? Great. We want to maybe light that from the side. We want to show more detail? Great. We have to kind of light that more from the side. Do we want something unusual? Maybe we light that more from the bottom. And I'm going to take a bunch of pictures here and show you in a few minutes. I have some props here. We're going to take some pictures and put them up on the screen and show them to you. What are we trying to do with the light? Now, let's also bring a little bit about composition into this, right? What does composition have to do with light? Well, typically we're very much used to what? Very much used to left to right. Right? We're very much used to our eye scanning left to right. Okay? So if we want to potentially introduce a little bit of tension in the image, right, we can make the viewer start on the right side of the frame and go to the left. Now, it's not to say that that is confusing them, but it does add a little bit of dissonance or a little bit of confusion as to where they should start to look at an image. So direction is huge for what we want to show, right? Why am I taking this picture? What's important to me? What I want to show. That third one, what do we want to show? How do we want to emphasize our subject or de-emphasize our subject? Remember, we can always look at this from both sides of the equation. You want to emphasize something, right? So one of the things that if we look at movies, you know, cinematographers are pretty important. Cameramen, camera operators, cinematographers, directors are pretty important because they really help set the tone. You know, the lighting people are pretty critical in a movie. And if you look at just about any action-oriented type movie, they're often lit pretty heavily from the sides. Now, that's not to say that it is the only light source, but it is a significant light source because side lighting produces detail. In an action movie, you know, there's a fight scene or there's some type of a confrontation or something like that. You want to show that tension in the scene, and you want to see all that detail. You want to see the sweat, right? You want to see the grimace. You want to see the punch land, all those kinds of things. And you can't do that with front lighting, right? It just washes everything out and almost reduces everything to being flat. Now, that's not very attractive, right? Flat lighting is not very attractive. Light coming from the camera's position towards the subject is not attractive. It doesn't look good. It flattens everything out. So we want to find a way to move the light around to create an effect or to create and show texture. So later on in the video, I'm going to give you what the assignment is, right? And if you've looked at your folders, you know what's coming up, right? The next assignment is pavement, okay? We'll talk more about the assignment in a few minutes. What we want to look at trying to do is show texture. We want to show dimension and shape to an object. And the way you do that is with lighting. So I have my little handy-dandy light for traveling here that I keep in my truck. And you know, you can use just about anything to do this at home and try to get some light to produce a strong direction, right? Even a little flashlight can work, you know, on a subject, right? Small subject, right? But even a flashlight can work to show shape and leave a big shadow. So you can use just about anything you have at home. You could even use the light on your phone. You know, that'll work too. And try to show shape and dimension to an object. Okay, so that's the idea. Let me get my props out, and I'll take a couple pictures, and we'll put them up on the big screen, and we'll talk about how and why that works or doesn't work. Okay? All right. Okay, so I have a real simple object right here, right? This is just a kickball ball, right? And I just grabbed some things to put it up on a prop so you can see it. So in this situation, I've turned off the overhead lights. And what we're going to do is just grab a flashlight or my trouble light here and kind of go around and look at what this does to an object when we change the direction of the light, okay? So here we can kind of see, I'm going to put the light you know, right in front and aim it directly at the object. And you can see I move it around, we get a little bit of a shadow behind the object. But notice, you know that texture, there's a lot of texture in that kickball, right? You've all seen those rubber balls with lots of texture, okay? We can make it a little bigger, a little smaller, right? We can do a number of things just like that. But watch what happens as I move the light in and begin to bring the light around to the side, right? We get a lot more texture and a lot more visual interest in the subject, right? Now it's kind of difficult to see with the video camera here, and that's why I'm going to take some still pictures so we can look at the great detail that we can produce here. All right, I'm going to turn my light down on lower intensity. And now you can, if I get in here really close, you can see all of this great detail and texture that the light produces as we move it around to see all of that texture, right? Lighting from the front is dull and boring, right? Don't do that. Try to do something where we can get the light around to one side or up above or even down below to produce texture. So it's all about direction of the light, right? How are we angling the camera or the light towards our subject to produce the desired effect, right? Okay, I can turn off a couple more lights here, and maybe that'll help a little bit more. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Now you can also do something, which I'll do here in a few minutes when I take some photos of it, right? We can add a reflector to the situation. So we can begin to fill in the far side. See how as I move the reflector closer and as I move the reflector away, see how I'm filling in the far side, or the dark side if you will, with the reflector. Now this is just a piece of foam core. Don't have a piece of foam core, get a piece of cardboard, paint it white. Right, so that works pretty well to get the idea of filling it in, right? All right, well, let's take some pictures and put them up on the screen so you can see this in better detail. Okay, so here we go. I turned some lights off so that I can have better control here. And I'm going to take a few photos and we're going to go through this situation, and I'll show you what we can expect. So let's go over here to our screen. And we'll keep that right about there. And you can see my camera settings and things of that nature. And I will endeavor to do this as quickly as I can. Let's change the function setting here. There we go. So we'll take just a simple, quick, 2-second exposure here, and I can move the light very quickly over into here. And then we get some good side lighting showing all of that great texture. Okay? Now, let's do the same thing, but let's put the light source directly in front of the subject rather than from the side. And again, you can see there's a little bit of texture, but not anywhere near as much as the previous image, right? So if we go back here and we look, right? All this great detail and all this great texture showing up because the light's coming from the side. Yeah, I'm a little hot on my exposure here, the light a little close, but you can really see the idea of what happens when you move the the light source around to the side of the subject. So some fun things you can do with this. I'll do another one here real quick. So in that situation, we move the light around from behind. Now that creates an entirely different effect or a different look to the subject, right? Well, let's try another one. Let's go directly from the bottom. Well, that's pretty cool. We're getting a lot of variety of lighting conditions. Look how the ball almost looks like it's spreading out, or it almost looks oblong as opposed to round. Now you know it's round, but because of the light direction, we're able to make the object look differently, right? Simply by changing the light direction. So this is what's really a lot of fun to look at and play around with the subject, is to get a variety of lighting conditions on the subject and make the subject look completely different. So this is one of the things I really enjoy about photography and about light direction, is what we're able to do and how we're able to make a subject look by simply changing the light direction. Okay? Let me stop for a second. Okay, now I realize this is not the ideal situation here, that, you know, the video camera can't quite capture everything due to exposure differences between what I can show on the still camera and show on the monitor and light everything up, because the lighting levels required for each are a little bit different, and it makes it a little bit more difficult to try and balance everything up perfect. But I think you get the idea of what we're looking for here in texture. Now the assignment is pavement, okay? So, you know, you can probably go outside. I think it's probably safe to just go outside the door, and as long as you're not interacting, I think you're probably okay. And look at what pavement you have around you. Now typically the assignment is one photo of concrete and one photo of asphalt. Okay, so why concrete and asphalt? Well, if you're thinking, you're ahead of me already, you know concrete is kind of white and asphalt's kind of black. So it's a light metering exercise because of the variety of reflective value of those two primary subjects. Okay, so now you know some of my ulterior motives or some of my learning outcomes for this assignment, of which there are many. You're probably not going to be able to get a good pavement shot simply shooting straight down from a standing position. You're most likely going to have to get down on the ground. Now it's supposed to be nice next couple of days, so hopefully you can get outside and do that. But the other idea is by getting the camera low and looking at the texture or the surface of the concrete or asphalt, it's also a focus point exercise. So where do you have the lens focused? How far away from the camera? It's also a depth of field exercise, right? So how much of the picture is in focus from foreground to background? So watch your f-stops. You're going to want to be up around f11, f16, maybe f22. To get some more depth of field. You're really going to have to watch where your focus point is, foreground to background. Now you can see here I'm shooting at f4, f4.5 here, right? How blurry the background is, and it's only about that far behind it, right? So depth of field's dropping off very quickly when we get in tight on a subject and zoom in, right? So you're going to have to watch your depth of field, how much of the picture's in focus, okay? So where to find good texture, right? Well, obviously any irregularities in the pavement are great places. Potholes, cracks, edges, where the pavement meets another surface, right? So like a curb or a drain or a manhole cover or something like that. Those are all good places to find texture. Steps, right, can be great places to find texture and detail. So you don't really need to go very far, right? Gravelly areas can be, right? Depends upon the situation. But it would be nice if we had pavement, concrete and asphalt. Now, if you don't have that available, by all means, you know, if you have a dirt driveway or a dirt road that you live on, by all means, go and you know, go out and shoot some shots on the dirt driveway or the dirt gravel road. That's fine, or the shoulder of the road. Be careful, as you know, watch out for traffic. The stripes on a road can be a good addition to get some texture, to show some texture. The contrast of the paint stripe can be a great place to get texture and detail. Try to stay away from like cinder block walls on a building. I want you to shoot flat to the ground, right? It's a difficult assignment to get the composition that looks nice, to get the light metering, to get the texture and detail. Now, obviously, at noon is probably not going to be the best time to take these images, right? You're going to want to catch the sun lower in the sky. Remember, direction of light, lower in the sky, either at sunrise or sunset, right? Two different times of the day when the sun produces great texture for us and detail, right? So we're typically looking for that kind of thing. Texture, detail, direction of light, show some visual interest in an otherwise pretty boring subject. Flat concrete, flat asphalt, large flat shape, hard to photograph. So now you understand that there's multiple, you know, reasons why I do these assignments and why I have you do things in order to, you know, broaden your scope and open up your eyes a little bit more and go from that passive to active, looking and seeing, right? So that's kind of the idea of the assignment, okay?